into the Indian judiciary at the lowest levels. You asked me about women, and should we deal with that briefly right now itself? I mean, I'll leave it to you, because there's something very important that, we need to focus on about women. The issue about creating a level playing field for women is not just an issue of the legal profession. It's an issue which has a broader social content. Take a very simple case where both spouses work and you have a child. There's a parents-teachers meeting in this class. Who goes to those parent-teachers meetings? The mother? If the child falls sick, is down with measles for 2 weeks, who stays home? The mother? Who stays home when the woman is expecting a child and she's in an advanced stage of pregnancy? Obviously the person who's carrying the child. Now what happens as a result of these societal inhibitions and barriers, the woman also has a very disproportionate responsibility for looking after the elderly in the family, parents, in-laws, the aged in the family. So if a woman drops out of the workforce at an early stage, it becomes extremely difficult to get back. Now take the case of the Indian judiciary. If a woman has, say, had a break for 3 years or 5 years when the children were young, it becomes extremely difficult then to get back at the same level as a male counterpart would be at. For the reason when we are recruiting judges to the High Court, we look at how many judgments do you have? What's the volume of cases that you have dealt with? A woman who has faced this break in career is basically not able to compete at the same level. So first and foremost, we will have to therefore lower, in a certain respect, the entry barriers or the entry standards to have more women entering into the higher judiciary, which is not to say that you are lowering quality, but you are lowering these barriers, conscious of the fact that women face these disproportionate social burdens which men do not necessarily face. But as I said, Zaka, this is not really so much an issue of the legal profession as a broader social issue. In the legal profession, there are certain peculiar things which women have to combat. One of them, for instance, is that, the high mobility at the workplace. You don't go to one job or one desk and sit there the whole day, right? Going to your office is only a very small part of a woman's or a man's role in the legal profession. You're working in the court all day long, but your work doesn't come to an end after court hours are over. You go back to your office, you're meeting clients, you're traveling cities. So in a sense, these particular constraints of the legal profession have a disproportionate impact on women in our society. And really speaking, therefore, there has to be a broader societal response to ensure that more and more women enter into the workplace. But as I said, India is changing. I mean, you just look at the audience in a court and you will find an overwhelmingly large number of young women today in our courtrooms, which is just a sign of the changing times.
But at the same point, while we have a lot of women entering into this profession, but at the same point of time, they exit too soon as well. So because, we have seen how delicate the washrooms in the trial courts would be. They're into very bad shape. They cannot go. And there are a lot of infrastructural issues also. Do you think that if they are addressed or some other things are adjusted, there could be better workplace management for women, and there might be a chance that more and more women could actually stay in the profession for a longer time itself?
Well, of course, I completely agree with you. For instance, in the district judiciary, we have very standard and well-established rules which allow for maternity leave, for leave at different stages of a woman's career. When a child is, say, for instance, appearing for a 10th board examination or a 12th board examination. So where you have structured rules which provide for a level playing field for women, women are able to really respond to the challenges of the profession. The problem arises in the unstructured market-based system, which is the private space in the legal profession, where you have individual lawyers recruiting juniors. There's no overall structure, in the sense that there is no overall regulation on how you will treat women in the workplace, because you don't have one large corporate entity like a big law firm only employing women. So where you find that, the interface of women in the legal profession is with a structural organization like the judiciary or law firms. There you would find that more and more women are extremely, successful. On the other hand, when it comes to solo practitioners, how much will you pay? Will you stop paying a woman because she's on leave for 3 months in your chamber? She's gone on leave for 3 months because a parent is seriously unwell. A woman has gone on leave for 3 months because she has a child coming up to deliver. How do we ensure that, you have a more socially responsible and socially responsive legal profession? And that's therefore something which the law can do only to a certain extent. The law is not an answer to everything. The change has to come through and it has to take place within society.
Chief Justice, there's a lot of talk around judicial reform of late, and I know we don't want to get into the specifics of anything because, some things could be still under investigation, some matters could be sub judice. I just want your 35,000 feet view on judicial reform. Is it a good time to have this debate in this country? You were part of, various judgments which talked about judicial reform. There is a view that, something needs to be done. I want your 35,000 feet view on whether it is an apt time to have that debate in this country about whether some certain things need to be reformed in the higher judiciary.
35,000 feet above sea level, when you have an air pocket, the pilot tells the passengers to fasten their seat belts and navigates that air pocket. Now, there is something to learn from that, and that's something which I have learned over, years of being in the judiciary and before that as a lawyer, which is never take decisions which are reactionary. When you have a problem on hand, deal with that problem on hand. Allow the dust to settle. Have a broad stakeholder consultation, a broad reflection on what needs to be done, and then take decisions which will be in the interests of the institution and the nation. Never take decisions on the spot because you may be reacting to a situation and your decision would be a decision which may not be well thought of. Talking of judicial reform, I think reform has to begin at the very base of the pyramid, namely the district judiciary, because that's where common people come into contact with the judicial system. A young couple which has a matrimonial dispute, where do they go to? They don't go to the High Court or the Supreme Court as a matter of first instance. They go to the family court. Now you see that in the family courts, there's a huge backlog of cases for the reason that we have used the adversarial system for resolving family disputes, which is so completely incorrect. Family disputes have to be resolved by applying non-adversarial systems because you have a child. If the couple has a child, there are issues of child custody, of child welfare. So we have to adopt a more non-adversarial system at the level of the district judiciary. The second important reform which we need to focus on is the huge vacancies in the district judiciary. Recruitment to the Indian district judiciary takes place in the states. It's never at the national level. I am a proponent of at least some national deliberation taking place on should we have an all India judicial service in India. In other words, we must make some effort to attract the best into the Indian judiciary at the district judiciary level. Apply reservations. Now, the states do have some concerns because we are a federal nation. So will having an all India judicial service impact on the responsibilities, the authorities, the constitutional role of the states? That has to be obviously thought of, and I don't discount the concerns of the states. But having said that, we can at least have a national level examination and then allow for recruitment by the states on the basis of the merit list in the national examination, applying reservations in relation to each state, whether for the SCs, the STs, or the OBCs, as the case may be. So that reform has to take place at the lowest level. Just one final word on this question, which is that the government, the state, is the largest litigator in Indian courts. The largest volume of litigation into Indian courts comes from the government. Now, I think the government has to rethink its policy on litigation and reduce the amount of litigation which governmental agencies take resort to. If that is done, you will find that more and more efficient means of resolving disputes take place. Unfortunately, we live in a culture of distrust where, the ordinary feeling is of every officer, say at the middle level or a senior level in government, go to court. If the court tells us to do it, well, we are protected because the court decided in a particular way. I think we have to answer that and allow for less and less disputes to go to litigation and allow for less and less disputes to go to trial. I saw, for instance, in the Supreme Court that every case goes to an oral hearing. Even a case where, say, 3 courts are in agreement with each other. We are probably one of the few Supreme Courts in the world where oral arguments are the predominant method of resolving disputes. Should we have reliance on oral arguments to that extent? Because they place a burden on the productive time of the courts. Then which are those cases where you should have oral arguments? Which are those cases where you should not have oral arguments? Some serious conversations across the nation on these aspects is necessary because we now have gathered experience over 75 years of the functioning of the judiciary. And there has to be a broader national dialogue on these critical issues which face the Indian judiciary to make it a more efficient judiciary, because unless we do so, the judiciary will not really in that sense be able to be a critical component in the advancement and the development of the nation. The judiciary is a very key aspect of rule of law. So when you speak, for instance, of getting more business into India, investment into India, what does investment need? What does global investment need or domestic investment need? Global or domestic investment needs a climate where the law is certain, the law is objective, the law is applied in a transparent manner, and disputes can be resolved efficiently. So, reforming the judicial system in that sense is going to be a key element in the overall progress of the nation to being truly a developed nation, both economically and socially.
Judiciary often walks down the tightrope between activism and restraint. So how do you feel? You've been the Chief Justice, you've been